this is the eternal challenge as a parent. How do you give, without spoiling? And it's a man who said this. It was like, the wealthy man is tormented on how to teach his children the lessons that got him where he was, because it's just like a lot of like wealthy parents got there because of the struggle that they had. And now they have a child who doesn't have to struggle. And so, super, super deep topic.
Do you ever wonder if you could or should be doing something better with your money? If so, you're in the right place. Join us on the Make the Most of Your Money podcast as we discuss the technical, behavioral, and spiritual elements necessary to making the most of your money. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Make the Most of Your Money podcast. You got Taylor and Colin as always. Colin, how are you?
I'm good, Taylor. How are you?
I'm good. Today we want to talk about giving money to kids. It's a question we both get quite a bit, and it's kind of, I think it'll be a good conversation because we sit on both sides of that with the clients we work with. I think you deal a lot with clients wondering how to give to kids, and I work with a lot of kids wondering how to plan for receiving gifts. And when it comes to giving, there's technical aspects of how much should I give, when should I give, what account should I give to, and those are important. And there's some tax stuff you want to be aware of and try to be as efficient as possible. There's also a lot of behavioral, psychological, spiritual even aspects to giving of just, which we're going to talk about. So I think you brought up a good point before when we were talking, that let's acknowledge off the top that it's a incredible blessing to be able to give to kids. If you're in a situation that there's a surplus that you can give, I mean, that's fantastic. The topic of gifting is really tricky because there's obviously, I think every parent has this desire that they want to help kids, their children. They'll do anything for them. But there's this balance of spoiling a kid. You deal with that in all sorts of ways. Just, you want to give, you care a bunch, but how do you not spoil them? So let's talk about that balance to start. Do you have any thoughts off the top on that?
Yeah, I mean you deal with it as a parent. You deal with it at every age, whether not wanting to spoil the 3-year-old who wants an extra cookie, all the way to adult children or once your grandchildren, and so it's how to balance those concerns is huge. I mean, I think the quote that comes to mind, and I'll don't. It's not an exact quote, but I think Warren Buffett said something like, I want to give my kids enough that they can do anything, but not so much that they can do nothing. And that resonates. Like, I want my kids to have every opportunity, whether that's to better themselves, education, enrichment, entertainment, all, I want those things for them. I want them to be able to grow up to be, to have opportunities and do something they're passionate about. But I don't want to give them so much that, they can sit on the couch all day or that they don't develop like that internal motivation to, go out and live life for their own reasons, or you want that motivation to be intrinsic rather than extrinsic, and so I mean this is a fertile area to talk about. I mean, a lot of families do it well, probably a lot more do it poorly, and it's messy.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say there's not necessarily a right answer to this. It's so dependent on the family, the kid, the parents. Like, what's how is the gift being given? Is it, a joyful gift? Is it, I'll give you this gift. For some parents, it can be a way to kind of extend control to an adult children, kind of,
Absolutely.
if you want to get your gift, you got to do this year and, be good or your inheritance will change. I mean, I don't know how many people actually do that, but like there's so much there. The Warren Buffett quote's incredible. I think that's the ideal, that you want to enable the kid to be able to do anything, but not do nothing. That's so perfect. And I think about with gifts, like across the age spectrum, back to the cookie example, like, how do you still make sure the lesson that they need to learn is learned?
Mm,
Like, because you still want kids to know how to work hard, to aspire for something, to struggle. Struggle is good. I think that's I'm gonna get too off topic, but like struggling is good. So how do you make sure that lesson is still learned, but also not ignore if you have the means to be able to give to make it a little easier, still be able to provide that. And I don't think necessarily this is the best time to bring it up, but one tactic that's always stuck in mind with me was a friend of mine growing up, very, very fortunate. Um, the dad could have bought any car under the sun, but he matched what the son raised for his first car when he was 16. And I was like, that example's always stuck with me as like fantastic, like
mm.
the kid still learned how to work and save and earn the car, and then dad matched it. I think that's fantastic. And I think that's a really good example of finding that balance of you still learn the lesson, but I'm still going to be able to give a gift there. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
just
think
thinking
about that
about.
in the context of like summer jobs. Like I want
Mhm,
my boys when they get older to have a job over the summer, not because
mhm,
like we couldn't give them some pocket money, but because
mhm,
I want them to learn, the
mhm,
about hard work and the satisfaction that comes from earning a paycheck and
mhm,
have to deal with all those, relationships, whether it's with a customer, whether it's with a
mhm,
boss. Like there's so many valuable experiences
mhm,
that come from just that, from like experiencing them, not from having been
mhm,
gifted
mhm.
a way to avoid them. So, yeah, I think but I just overarching all of this is like um, that. How will this gift impact the recipient, and are you attaching strings to this, or how is it? Um, how will it be received? And you can't always know that,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that Buffett quote's a good one. I want them to learn what hard work is, and learn to um, figure out their own path in life too.
Yeah. I think we should also mention we talk about a term called the great wealth transfer, which we advisors use all the time. It's this idea that the baby boomers have had this incredible there's a ton of wealth that's going to get passed down in the
Hmm.
next 10, 20 years. And a lot of times if people think of gifts, they think of like by choice. But if you think about a estate, passing on your estate, that's just because you die. But like there's going to be a lot of if you view passing on an estate, basically your money when you die as a gift, there's going to be a ton of gifts being given whether you want to or not. And so
Mm.
even posthumously, you're going to be there's going to be a lot of gifts going on. And so this can apply even if you're not necessarily thinking about giving while you're alive. You're going to be giving there's a lot of people who will be giving a lot of money and thinking this through and thinking through the behavioral side, the spiritual side, and then some of the technical stuff we'll talk about is super, super important. Because it's just a super real thing. There's a lot of people that may not even want to give who are just going to die with a lot more money left than maybe they ever thought they would. And
Yeah.
then you enter there's a super popular book. The concept was die with zero, and the idea was try to
Yeah.
give away all your money while you're alive instead of dead. And one of the arguments is, isn't it better to see the joys of that while you're living? There's some incredible mathematical and technical challenges behind actually doing that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I just wanted to bring that up again. That just this is a very wide. This is going to apply to a ton of people, probably whether you want to or not. So, thinking this through is, I think, really important.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There may be there are many more people who will be gifting as part of their estate that maybe
Hmm.
can't afford to gift now because they don't know about,
Hmm.
long-term care needs or longevity, or that you do have to you have to protect yourself first, obviously.
Hmm.
But in most cases, like there will be something left for the kids, and so being somewhat proactive about those discussions, and just in general, like openness, as your kids are adults now, and having
Hmm.
those kinds of discussions with them about what your own finances are, your own situation, because they may need to know it at some point when they're helping you to manage it. Just this, it's all kind of wrapped up in this conversation about
Yeah, and
intergenerational gifting.
that's something really interesting. Is do you talk about it or not? Um,
Mm,
because I deal with it with a lot of people typically receiving gifts. Like, should it be planned for or not?
Mm.
An inheritance or a gift of some kind. Like, I think most people, the default would be like, I'm not going to expect it or plan for it. I'll be grateful if it happens. But there's also a point where, like, if it's a fact and it's coming, why would you not plan for it? Like, if you know you're
Mm.
going to get a bonus at work in 5 years, you'd plan for it,
Mm.
right? So why do we treat gifts differently? And um, I think if, of course, there's no certainty, but there are conditions where you can know that you're going to be receiving some amount of money. I think that is something that should be acknowledged in a financial plan, um, and planned for. Do you agree, disagree?
Ooh.
Not sure.
Um, I mean, speaking for myself and what I advise clients and what
Yeah.
most clients generally want to do when they're planning, is to not include any
Mm-hmm.
specifics around the timing or amount of a gift. Like, let's just not count on it. Let's plan as if that's not happening, because you don't know.
Yeah.
Um, that your parents may need that money, or it may be that you don't get it, or don't get it
Yeah.
when you think you're going to get it, or So I think from a planning standpoint, I always recommend, like, let's just plan without it, and it'll be nice if and when it does happen. Um, you know, just because otherwise it also feels weird to, like, when are my parents going to kick the bucket so I can get this, get my retirement plan back on track. It's
Hmm.
that feels wrong.
Hmm. But it's ignoring reality to totally ignore it too, though.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and
I mean, I
then
think,
there are certainly situations where clients have made different decisions because they know that there's a backstop there.
yeah,
And I mean, that's always been true throughout the entire life. I mean, you see that with young kids, or kids
yeah,
that, like, college, they get in trouble or whatever. They know that mom and dad has their back, or they
yeah.
could afford to take a risk on
Let,
starting a company because they know if
yeah.
this fails, like, I'm not going to be starving.
Let me
Um,
give you some concrete examples. Yeah, I'll keep it anonymous. Um, a client knows with extreme certainty that there will be a very sizable gift and their parents are old. These clients are in their 30s. So, it'll happen before they retire. Unless a Guinness Book of World Records is going to be set for longevity on the parents. Um, we were talking about life insurance. And at first they didn't want to get life insurance because our parents will help us. And I'll be honest, I was like, "Ugh, I don't love that answer."
mhm,
And this is what I said. I said, would your parents agree with that statement? Would you tell your parents,
mm,
I'm not buying life insurance because you're going to pay for it? I said, oh, no,
mm.
not at all. We're going to get life insurance.
That's a great way to
Yeah,
frame it.
it was just like, and because if the parents are like, absolutely, that's our arrangement. Of course we would step in and help. Don't pay money for life insurance. Okay. Okay. Like, who am I to tell you no, the parents shouldn't help out? But when I phrase it that way, oh yeah, no, definitely not. Um, so that was one example where they ended up getting the life insurance, and we did a term policy because it's not a permanent need. There will not be a permanent need for life insurance in this case. Um, then we're looking at savings. They're already saving a tremendous amount. They're doing very well. You keep it percent. They're probably saving 17%, and they needed to be at about 20% to fully fund their retirement savings
Like,
as if there was no gift.
independently.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. And there was a decision, something they wanted to do that was going to cost that 3%. And this is where I said, okay, you could forego this thing and save for your retirement. Or you know what, guys? You're doing a great job. You're saving a lot. There's a very large gift coming. Go ahead and live your life.
Mm,
That's an example of planning for the gift. They're not just blowing money, saving nothing, doing nothing. But like, I think that's a really good example of balancing how do you plan for or not a gift. Like, let's not be, if you're going to get just pulling numbers, like, you know you're going to see $5 million in the next 15 to 20 years, and you're going to not do something for $10,000 today. We're not going to take that family vacation when the kids are young because we got to save for retirement when you know I think that's where that's kind of silly to just ignore it blindly. And I think it's okay to know, okay, like we're not fully funding retirement because we know there's this big amount. I think that's perfectly fine. I think what's not perfectly fine is I'm not going to save for anything. I'm going to do everything because mom and dad are going to give me a bunch of money when I die. I think that's most people would agree. Like that's too far the other way. So I just think
Yeah,
maybe
and
that example helps what I'm
yeah,
talking about. Go ahead.
I totally agree with that, and those are the kinds of like gray area or where there's room to personalize that plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the other side, like one of the reasons I personally don't want to count on it is because I
Mm-hmm.
want like independence. I want
Mm-hmm.
to know that like that's obviously we all desire control. We all want independence, but I don't want to have like strings that are real or imagined
Mm-hmm.
placed on what we choose to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I
Yeah.
want to be able to, like if one of us became disabled, probably our parents would help us out in
Mm-hmm.
that situation. But whether but I would also like to be able to say that, like, you know what, we can still cover it. We've got some
Mm-hmm.
disability insurance that will enable us to be more independent than if we
Mm-hmm.
were totally relying on
Mm-hmm.
family. So it's a there's, like you said at the outset, like there's not a right answer here. I think both approaches, we don't want to totally ignore reality, or
Mm-hmm.
but we also want to understand how those family dynamics, and
Yeah.
um, be cognizant of how those can affect your
Mm-hmm.
plan. um,
Let's talk about how to give now, like how to actually give money. And before we get into some of the technical stuff, it just came to mind, like there's a lot of ways to give without
mm,
sending a check. And
mhm,
it could be, I mean, something I've seen a lot of grandma and grandpa pay for a big vacation for the whole family.
mm.
Like kind of the experience is like, that was a $10,000 vacation, but they pay, it wasn't a check to them to do something. So, that's one, I don't know, that just came to mind before we get too into it. I want to make sure I said that, but
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
love that,
super
and I've
interesting.
I've had some clients do use their money that way.
Yeah.
They want to do something that the kids wouldn't otherwise do for themselves. They could
Yeah.
just write a check, but like those kinds of experiences, those memories, the trips with grandkids,
I think
to the
everybody
grandkids,
wins.
like
Uh,
it totally.
the gift giver gets to experience it with them. The gift receiver gets to experience that trip and that time with them. Like I think I love that idea, and
Yeah.
I think it's been really cool to see someone like kind of blow it out stuff they never would have done when the kids were young
Hmm.
and kind of like,
Hmm.
we're gonna rent that place, we're gonna go to that place and do that. I think that's really really cool. But
Yeah, and
um,
being on the other side of that, like, yeah, as the recipient in
mhm,
of those kinds of gifts, um, yeah, like just at our time in life with young kids and things, like that's just not even something we can consider
yeah,
financially, or whatever. And so it truly is a gift
mm,
when you're able to go on an experience like that, a
mm,
once in a lifetime
mhm,
thing. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that's kind of the true nature of gift. Like there are no strings attached here.
yeah, yeah.
It's just an
That's a true
experience.
gift. If there's
It's
strings, it's
time.
a transaction.
Yeah,
If
for
there's
sure.
um, okay, so when it comes to actually giving money, I think at least something that comes up a lot when I talk to people is like, how much can I give for tax purposes? Because there's, if you may or may not know, there's if you give over a certain amount, then you have to report it to the IRS as a taxable gift, and that can be that's a very misunderstood phrase. What I just said. Um,
Mm,
in 2026, the limit's like $19,000 you can give somebody
yeah.
without kind of off the record. Nobody needs to know. um, right, and we could like that's if you're married, each couple can give that to one person. So like mom and dad can give me $38,000 this year. But what I wanted to point out is like, let's talk about that gift tax, that limit. If you go over that gift, all it does is, well, okay, when you pass away, you pass on an estate, and there's a certain amount that you can basically deduct before you would ever have to pay an estate tax. You don't just have to wait until you die to do that. Let's say that you gave somebody $50,000, that's 31,000 over that $19,000 limit. That 31,000, nobody's paying income tax on that this year. It just would be counted as a taxable gift that then when you die would reduce that deduction at the end of your life until you would have to pay a tax on your estate. That's not completely technically the right terms all the way throughout, but functionally that's what happens. So like, I think that 19,000 thing changes every year. One, I think it can be kind of a nice upper bound for people giving gifts. Oh, I can't give more than that. There's the taxable limit's 19,000, but it's not like a super real limit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's important because it's interesting. We started the conversation talking about like gifting during life, and you
Mm-hmm.
may not be able to gift during life, but
Mm-hmm.
odds are you will have an estate that is passed on. And it's interesting that even like in the tax code, the
Mm-hmm.
gifts and the lifetime gift exemption and and the estate tax exemption are the
Mm-hmm.
same amount, and they're
Mm-hmm.
counted together. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like you said, when you gift above the annual exclusion, that $19,000, all that happens is you have to submit a form to the IRS that
Mm-hmm.
said, I gave this much over the annual limit, and that's counted against your lifetime exemption.
Yeah.
And that lifetime exemption applies to gifts and it applies to
Yeah.
estate. And so right now, after the big beautiful bill, um, that lifetime exemption is $15 million,
Yeah.
and so there's a very small number of households that are approaching that because it's
And
15
that's,
million per person.
yeah.
It's is for if you're married, 15
So
million
what
per
we're
spouse.
saying is, kids, if your parents tell you they can't give you more than the $19,000, ask them, are you going to pass on more than 15 or $30 million? And if they say no, then call their bluff and say, you can give me a lot more than that because you can just use your
I
lifetime gift
don't know that I
exemption.
would recommend that tactic.
But
And parents, from the flip side, like it's a useful tool for parents to say, oh,
it's a great
well,
upper limit.
19 is all we can do.
Yeah. The tax
Even though
purposes,
that
but
may not technically be
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that it's not technically true because maybe there is a need and you want to be able to give more than that in a specific year because there's a specific need in this year and you want to be able to do more. It's important to know that, like, no, you don't pay tax on that unless you've
Yep.
given more than $15 million away in your lifetime.
Yeah, client example, the grandma had about a $3 million estate, sold a chunk of land and wanted to pay it out to the grandkids and kids, and was going to do it over like 3 and 4 years because she didn't want to trigger the gift tax. And I was like, she's not going to owe any gift. She's not going to, like, you can do it. You could give 100 grand to, I think they were trying to give 100 grand to like 7 people over 7 years, or over however many years it was going to take. And I was like, no, you can just do it all now. Like, she wants
Yeah.
to get the money out, but like, well, the limit's 18,000, 19,000. It's like, no, you don't have to wait for that.
Yeah.
So
Unless you have an
it is good to
estate
know.
tax problem, like you are approaching that $15 million
Right.
mark, like
Yeah.
you probably don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you have to file the form, but
Yeah.
you don't need to. You're not going to end up actually paying tax on it. It's
Yeah.
just you have to report it. Um,
Yep.
so yeah,
So
that's an interesting place to start because that's
yes. And that, and
often misunderstood.
yes. So like that gift tax thing it comes up all the time, but like it's a number to factor in, but it's not a limit by any means. What about how to get, like, it is different gifting money to a minor versus an adult child.
Mm.
Because I do deal with that with clients 40 years old trying to, seed something for their 8-year-old or 5-year-old. We come up with, and it's a little bit unique, but let's talk about giving to adult children. I guess it's not really complicated. You just write them a check to them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you don't have to worry about the account type and all this. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
and if you truly don't want to have to worry about filing that gift tax form, if you're going over the annual exclusion, and you're married and your child's married, you can give 19,000 to each
Mhm.
spouse, and your
Mhm.
spouse can give 19,000. So that's 4 times 19. What is
Mhm.
that?
6.
76,000. So
Mhm.
really functionally the you wouldn't have
Mhm.
to file any paperwork till you went over that
Yeah.
amount if you structure it properly.
And you
Um,
could, in that example, you could write a check to Colin and write a check to Rita, and there you
yeah,
go. That's it.
yeah,
You know,
it's
like,
easy.
you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there are all sorts of rules. You can gift other assets too.
Mhm.
Like you could gift appreciated stock.
Mhm.
You could gift property that's appreciated. Um, the rules there are that the recipient would then owe tax on any gain when they sell it. um, they would inherit your cost basis for the gift. Um, and so, there's some planning that can go
That
on around that. Like if the parents are in a high tax bracket, the child's in a low tax bracket, it may make more sense for the child to sell the security rather than the parent. Um,
uh, you must step up in basis?
Well, then now you're talking about estate planning
Yeah,
considerations,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah, well,
like
I okay,
if you're within, if you're going to die soon, obviously it may be worth waiting, and
I see
so not
I
gifting highly
you're talking
appreciated
about if you,
assets.
like, let's say you bought some Apple for 60, it's now worth 100, and you'd like to give out of the Apple shares. Like, do you
Yeah,
sell
and
it
you were going to
yourself? Do
sell
you
those
gift the shares
anyways to
on?
fund the
Yes.
gift.
Um, but just we've talked about this in the past. Basically, step up in basis where when you pass away, non-tax deferred or tax-free accounts, it's like you talk about, like, if you gift while you're alive, you inherit their cost basis. If you gift when you're dead, they inherit the fair market value as their cost basis. Basically, could be very worth waiting to gift non-retirement assets to people. Um, why that's
If
how
they're
I
highly
usually, but
appreciated,
yeah,
yeah,
I highly
yeah,
appreciate it. Plus,
yeah.
gifting retirement assets, it doesn't really work that way. So that's, I don't want to derail us there. What about giving to children?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about what you want the gift to be for,
Mm-hmm.
and what access do you want the kids to have and when.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, um, if you are giving because you want to support their education, um,
Mm-hmm.
I think 529 plans are a great tool.
Mm-hmm.
Especially 529 plans like funded by a grandparent,
Yep.
because for tuition or for the student aid calculation on the FAFSA, the grandparents' assets don't count, whereas the parents' assets do. And so, if you as a grandparent open up a 529 account for your grandchild's benefit, um, that doesn't count against them for receiving financial
Mm-hmm.
aid. Like if the parent were to open one for their children, that would count against them, for receiving financial aid. But regardless, I think what 529 accounts are great. The basic idea is there are sometimes state tax benefits associated with giving to them. That's a
Mm-hmm.
state by state rule. Here in Virginia, you can deduct $4,000 per beneficiary per account. So functionally, you can deduct many times 4,000 if you just open multiple accounts. That's an odd state rule. Others
Mm-hmm.
cap it. Connecticut, I know, caps it at $10,000 you can deduct from your state taxes when you donate to a 529 account in
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut. Those are state by state rules, but the basic idea is the federal rules is you put after tax money into it, it grows tax deferred, and as long as it's used for education purposes, qualified
Mm-hmm.
education purposes, you don't pay any tax on the growth either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's totally tax free. Um, Qualified education, obviously, college counts, tuition, room and board, books,
Mm-hmm.
computers. There's now expanded use for K through 12
Mm-hmm.
education. That was a recent change
Yeah.
in the big beautiful bill. It used to be you could use 10,000 per year for K through 12 tuition. Say your grandchildren go to private school.
Mm-hmm.
You can use up to 10,000. Now that limit's increased to 20,000 per year, and you can also use it for a few other things,
Mm-hmm.
like tutoring and certain educational services. Um, so I love 529 accounts for that. I think it's and especially if you want that, if you want to be pretty sure that that gift is going to go towards education,
Yeah.
529 account's a great tool.
It may be a rare case, but if you are worried about, you can give too much to a 529 though.
Mm,
Like again, it's not common, but let's say you're trying to leave you can give too much because you could let's say you seeded $100,000 at 529, a kid gets a full ride scholarship.
yeah,
Kind of messy to get that money out, but like, and then so that may or may not, that's not relevant to everybody, but that is something to consider there. And so if either they are worried about giving too much or they want to give to other areas, like what
hmm
other options are there besides the 529s? What if you just say like, no, I want to kind of help with the down payment someday, like not for the adult child, for a 5-year-old. You want to just, grandma
sure,
wants to give them $1,000 a year, not give it to a 5-year-old, but let it build up and compound, kind of like the old gave you a savings bond type of thing. What are
sure.
the options there?
Yeah, so there's a couple options and one new one that I'm sure we'll talk about, but
Mm-hmm.
um, right off the bat, children can own brokerage accounts. They're called custodial accounts. There's two acronyms, UTMA or UGMA, and it's essentially just a regular taxable brokerage account. Um, and since minors can't own property outright, there's a custodian named, and so that has to
Mm-hmm.
be an adult who oversees the account until the child is old enough. And so that I think is a great option. You can invest it, you can let it grow. It's important to understand when that gift becomes accessible to the
Mm-hmm.
recipient, and it varies state by state, but it's usually either 18 or 21, and
Mm-hmm.
then that custodial account drops away and it's just a regular brokerage account at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
then the child, now an adult, has full control over it to use for whatever they want, whether it's school, down payment, or beer money.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing. Like that is the way to give. Like if you wanted to, you have a 5 or an 8-year-old granddaughter or kid, and you want to give them that money directly, it is their money. You have no control once they turn 18 or 21, for better or worse. And
yeah,
so I think a lot of parents go, "Oh God, if they can grow, maybe it grows to $100,000. Would that be a good thing if I was 18?" Hopefully, yeah, yeah, just that's a good thing to know that is, you got no say on it after that. It is theirs.
yeah, yeah. And so there, the amount that you're giving obviously should factor into it.
Something I've helped with some clients who, in this example, like they want to start seeding something for their kids outside of 529s. They just use a brokerage account in the parent's name, of like,
Mm,
if it depends how much we're talking about, but if it's like we're going to put $1,000 a year in here for each kid, it's not going to go to some insane amount. And then when they are that way, two things happen. One, the parents in control the whole time, and they could say like, "Oh, my kid's kind of a knucklehead at 18. I don't want to give them that yet." Like it's earmarked for them and they can give it. It may not be the most tax efficient way, but it's not like tax devastating way to do that. But it's not in a custodial account. It's not in a 529. It's just a brokerage account in the parent's name that they know is going to be for the kids, and they could give them the $19,000 or whatever it will be when the kid turns, for Christmas, like whatever, when they're older. I see that quite frequently too, that
yeah,
because there are some restrictions and trade-offs to the 529 issue and the UTMA and UGMAs that we talked about. That is always an option. And I guess by that token, for any age kid, you can just kind of have it in there. You can kind of give it mentally, and it grows in a brokerage account, and then you can give it out of that later on too. It doesn't always
sure.
have to
Yeah,
be. That's more of a planning tactic of like mental accounting thing. Um,
right. Yeah, that's
of
not
how to do it.
nothing happens from a tax perspective
Yeah.
when you do
That
that.
nobody's
But
considering that a technical gift, but like mentally, that's one way to balance it, of
yeah,
like, okay, we're going to seed this account. That's for giving to
yeah,
the kids, and give out of it
sure.
in time. But
And
if you're
set
on,
them
yeah.
up as the beneficiary of it or
No.
something like that. And then
Yeah.
the other option, which we haven't talked about, is like if you do still want more control,
Mhm.
um, that's where trusts can come
Trusts. Yeah.
in. And now we're in the realm of you know irrevocable trusts. If we're
Mhm.
actually giving it to get it out of our estate,
Mhm.
but we
Yeah,
still have some controls over it. Now, if it's a true gift, you technically can't be the one in control of it anymore.
mhm,
But there are other forms of trusts like grantor defective trusts
mhm,
where you technically are still in control. You get taxed for it, but it's out of your state for estate tax purposes. I don't want to get into all the legal stuff there, but yeah, a trust is how you exert control over an account. Like if you don't
mhm,
want that child to have full access to it when they
mhm,
turn 18 or 21, that's
mhm,
what one thing trusts can do, and that's a whole
mhm,
rabbit hole separate episode to um, go down, because
mhm,
there's expense involved in setting up a trust like that and
mhm,
overseeing, maintaining and whatnot. So,
mhm,
that may be a good fit for some people. For most people,
mhm,
unless we're talking about huge sums of money, I tend to recommend against it.
yeah, 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 definitely. I think a good takeaway it comes up a lot. Like if you're worried about the estate tax, if you're passing on a 15 or $30 million estate or gifting that much, like it's a different conversation. And also, like back to the whole should you plan for it thing, it would be stupid to not plan for, at least account for that if we're talking that type of
Mhm,
account side of an estate.
mhm.
So probably definitely different conversation for those folks, but the kind of mass affluent still. I mean, this has been very very relevant to think through. I mean, I think what are our main takeaways? Like, there's lots of different ways to give. There's different account. Well, did you want to talk about
Yeah,
the Trump accounts?
let's
Okay,
talk
yeah,
about the
yeah,
new one.
yeah.
Let's talk about Trump accounts.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have any
Man,
views on them off the bat?
at first, like, this is brilliant. So the idea is that it's oversimplifying like an IRA for kids, right?
Mm.
Like in a sense, like here's some money that you can give to kids that it can start growing very early on. And there's a couple of ways they can touch it along the way. On the surface, I was like, this is great. Like, I think this is awesome. Like, especially if we're gonna have we have a savings crisis and Social Security's got all these issues. The more that people can save for themselves, the better. Um, but like everything, there's trade offs and there's pros and cons to it. And there's I feel like what I read is changing all the time. I'm like, when they're going live, how is it actually going to work? That I've kind of put a pin in it for the time being until there's a little more clarity.
Yeah, not all
But
the rules aren't done being written.
yeah,
The
yeah,
bill may
that's
have
part of
passed,
like,
but there's still guidance that needs to be
yeah,
issued on some areas. I mean, I think about it like there's two ways to think about it. The first or two big aspects to it. The first is the $1,000 bonus that you get
mhm.
if you have a child born between, now I'm going to mess up the dates, but is it 2026 and
I think
2029 or
last year included because we had a
2025 and
baby last
29?
year, and I was like, I'm pretty sure our baby
Pretty sure
would
you're going to get
qualify
it.
for that
Okay. Yeah.
$1,000. So,
So, $1,000, that's free money from the government that they'll
yep,
seed into an account for you. Take it and
yeah,
run, by all
yeah,
means. Um,
yeah,
then there's the contributions that can be made to the account on
mhm,
behalf of the child.
mhm,
And there's a limit for how much. I think it's $5,000
mhm,
friends and family can gift per
mhm,
year to the account, and then
mhm,
there's an employer gift
mhm,
amount that can be given. I want to say it's another $2,500 a
mhm.
year.
Somewhere in there.
Um, Say again.
Somewhere in there. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Two
don't
three
quote me on
thousand.
these numbers.
Yeah.
But so that money is put into the account. It's after tax. There's no deduction
No.
associated with it. So this is after tax money that's going into the account. And then it can be invested and grow tax deferred like an IRA.
Mhm.
So any growth, you can buy and sell securities within it. You don't get taxed on it until money comes out.
Mhm.
And there are some, like IRAs, there are some ways to get money out
Mhm.
without penalty early,
Mhm.
for education, for um,
First time home. First time
first
home buyer.
home. Yeah. There's some other exceptions to it. So you don't pay a penalty if you take it out early for
Mhm.
that. However, you do still pay tax.
When you
You
pull the
pay
money out.
tax on the growth when you pull the money out. So
And
it's not like
that's
a raw.
g but that's like 59 and a half, right? Is subject to that. Like, it's when you can
No,
pull money out. Yeah.
any growth in the account that you pull out is
No, no, no.
subject to income tax.
Yeah, yeah, but like the penalty,
The penalty, yeah, there's a
yeah,
10% penalty if you pull it out before age 59 and a half,
right. That's what I was talking
and
about.
it's not a qualified
Purchase.
exception to it.
Yeah.
So you pay income tax and the penalty if you take it out
So
early
that's what I
for
was
a
saying.
non-qualified reason.
It's like an IRA that you can
Yeah.
contribute. You're not going to pay tax if you buy or sell along the way, but when you turn 59 and a half, you're going to have to, you can then pull money out, but you're going to have to pay tax on it again. Um, so that's where that framing came from. But then there's a couple of things you can use it for along the way. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that's a good idea, but like understand like that money's got strings on it for a very long time because we're talking about like
Yeah, and if you want to help your grandchildren out with their with starting to fund their retirement, sure, that could
mm,
be a great way
I
to see
go if
some
you
money in it.
go pull it, find a time value money calculator, put $6,000 as the present value, then add a 5% interest rate for like after inflation adjusted returns, and then put 60 years as the
Yeah.
time period. See how much it turns into. You might think it's nothing. I'm gonna do it real quick because it's yeah. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's
don't
the
do it
same
like
calc.
60, and then think about doing that every single year. Like I think it's fantastic. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and recognizing that, like, the benefits of it are going to accrue to the wealthiest people who can afford to gift that to their children, and so,
Yeah.
there's some equity issues here. The other thing to keep in mind, and this I think is where the value of these accounts is probably overstated, is that when you take money out and you pay tax on it, you are paying tax on it at ordinary income
Yeah.
rates.
Yeah.
And so you may get that tax deferral, but you're going to pay tax at ordinary income rates, not capital gains rates. And so, like, if you had invested money in a regular taxable brokerage account for that child, like a UTMA, UGMA,
Well,
they would only be paying tax at capital gains rates when they take those funds out or
and
when they
think
sell.
I think that's been one of the counter arguments I've seen is like, especially if a grandparent wants to do it, you know what's better? Open up a brokerage account, contribute to it because there's no limit to how much you can contribute, but it's after
Sure.
tax money either way. Let it grow, and when you die, the kid inherits it. Step up in basis. There's no tax
Yeah,
event at that point. That is the more efficient way to do it. So,
sure.
so like that's where like on the surface, love the idea. Let's encourage people to save. This is nice, but there's some intricacies there that kind of okay, like because you're not getting the best of any of the worlds. You're not getting the tax
Mm,
deduction like you would an IRA. You're not getting the tax free withdrawal like you would a Roth. You are getting tax deferral, but you're not getting capital gains treatment at the end. So yeah.
yeah. And
Also,
some things to keep an eye on, though, is it may be that these end up being eligible for Roth conversions
yeah.
at some point, and so I don't think all the rules are written yet
Well,
as to whether they will be, but it looks like they will be.
even if they are written, they can be rewritten, and that's where it's like,
Sure.
I mean, okay, if this is for kids today, like, what's the younger, like 18 years old, 41 and a half years until people really start pulling money out of this. Like,
Yeah.
a lot's going to change between now and then. So definitely an option. Lots to come on the Trump accounts. I kind of think there's some other tools, at least initially, like as things are getting sorted out, but it's at least good to know that these are going to be coming. And I'm sure we'll be hearing all about them because of their lovely name. And I think it's also a fun time to point out, like, this is how accounts are named. Like people, Trump account, people know who that's about. Roth accounts are named after a person,
Yeah.
like it doesn't stand for anything. So like, this is how it happens. It's kind of fun to see these things come down, uh, live. So anyways, but
Yeah. Man, what this is I mean, it's a deep topic. I'm trying to think what haven't we talked about? We've only scratched the surface on some areas of
mhm.
this, but just to kind of wrap it all up, you know,
I think
what would you
lots of
say?
ways to get lots of ways to give. It's a little different if you're giving to a minor versus an adult. Um, giving while you're alive versus when you pass away, there's some slight differences. Lots of options. The gift tax, the whole $19,000 thing is not like a super real limit, or it shouldn't be a restriction. But I think the biggest thing is not the mechanics of how to give. It's just, what are you trying to accomplish with the gift? What's the best way to accomplish it? It doesn't have to just be a check to somebody. And I mean, this is the eternal challenge as a parent. How do you give, without spoiling? And
Mm,
I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was something as like, and it's a man who said this. It was like, the wealthy man is tormented on how to teach his children the lessons that got him where he was,
mm,
like, because it's just like a lot of like wealthy parents got there because of the struggle that they had. And now they have a child who doesn't have to struggle. And so, super, super deep topic. If you're in your 60s, 70s and adult children, you've been struggling with this issue for a very long time. And so it's really nothing new. And so I think one thing I like, don't be afraid to give while you're alive. I think that's
mm,
it's really, really cool. But, and I also would encourage people to talk about it. I don't think it helps anybody for it to be a black box how much mom and dad have on either end. Now, if you're worried about a kid abusing it, um, maybe that's one thing. But I just think the more transparent, the more facts, and the more proactive you can be about talking about this stuff, generally the better. Um, yeah. What about you?
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, like we talked about a little bit last week with what changes when you're retiring. Um, yeah, you're preparing the next generation for a time when you won't necessarily be
Yep.
around, whether that's after your death or if you're incapacitated, and so like the more open, frank discussions that can be had
Mhm.
intergenerationally, the better for everyone,
Mhm.
so that your wishes can be carried out, and um, yeah. So I know the conversations like this, family dynamics, they're always
Mhm.
messy, but it's getting into the mess sometimes is better than avoiding it, and
Mhm.
uh, yeah, like you said, gifting can be one of life's greatest pleasures too, and to be
Mhm.
able to see the gift, see the child, see the grandchild, and what they can do with that gift, whether it's
Mhm.
education or whether it's help with their, home down payment or, starting a business. Like, it's pretty cool to be in the position of being able to
Mhm.
help. And that can bring a lot of satisfaction and joy. So,
Yeah.
um,
Last thing I'd say is we've just been talking about giving to kids. There's all sorts of other people and organizations and places you can give. This has been focused on the kids piece, and it definitely doesn't need to be the only thing you're doing. Um,
Yeah,
but
for
yeah,
sure. And when you say, like, when we talk about like how much is too much, there are plenty of people who have estates that, like, gosh, that might be too much to give to someone. And then I
yep.
think, like, we should broaden the conversation to talking about legacy in other ways.
Yeah,
What charities, what causes do you care about?
yeah, yeah. This is probably too late in the conversation to bring it up. But a good friend of mine who's it's probably will be thinking about the estate tax, and 20 years ago, he was all about giving to his kids, had a ton of life insurance. Kids were the beneficiaries for all this. His kids are like 24 now. He's like, you know what? They don't need this much money. I'll leave him
Yeah.
some. And so his priorities have shifted. And I think it's okay to have your priorities shift too. And like, if you're 67 a day thinking about it, your answer might change in 20 years, 15 years. And that's
Mm,
okay. So just kind of wherever
totally.
you're at, evaluate it. None of this is outside of irrevocable trust, irreversible. So,
Yeah.
it's okay to change your mind. And maybe that's an argument to not tell your kids how much you might pass on if you change your mind later.
There we go. Talking out of both sides of our mouth again.
Yeah, exactly. That's the challenge of this. That's the challenge of this. So, but no, this is good. Yeah, very deep topic, very very complicated, multi-layered. But I think this is good.
Yeah. Thanks for the conversation.
Cool. Well, my pleasure, man. Thanks for being here. See you next
Yeah.
time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to learn more about Colin, Taylor, or the show in general, head to makethemostofyourmoneypodcast.com. All opinions expressed are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on the Make the Most of Your Money podcast should be considered advice. Always consult with your team of professionals before making any decisions regarding your finances.